Welcome to Friend or Foe, the series where we pick apart the characters from some of our favorite games to figure out who is a friend, someone that we don't need to worry will stab us in the back, and who is a foe, someone who would intentionally bring harm to the group if given the chance. I'm Josh Bearheart Hawk, and today we're dissecting someone who seems to be universally hated, Bonnie from Telltale Games' The Walking Dead Season 2. As always, you can find a link in the description to a playlist for this series for those long nights where you just want to sit back, relax, and listen to a bunch of breakdowns all at once. If you ask most fans of Telltale's The Walking Dead games who their least favorite character in the series is, they'll probably list Bonnie from 400 Days in Season 2 among a short list that contains names like Larry, Lily, Arvo, Carver, and Ben. But why does this one character who doesn't really have a ton of big moments in the game overall have so many haters? Overall, we don't know much about Bonnie prior to when we first meet her in 400 Days. We know that she had some kind of addiction, which a man named Leland and his wife Dee helped her to overcome, and we can surmise from the first interaction she has with Leland that the pair have some kind of romantic connection. The fact that she was able to fight off the problems with whatever substance she was addicted to says a lot about her character. People struggle every day with addiction and trying to overcome urges and substance abuse even in the modern world, where help is usually readily available. To overcome that in a post-apocalyptic society where every day is a struggle to survive and basic necessities are hard to come by, takes a lot of willpower, even with the assistance of others. But we don't get much time to see Bonnie, Leland, and Dee together as they wind up being chased by a group of people into a cornfield, where the fear and darkness wind up playing against them. In the chaos, Bonnie winds up killing Dee by mistake and fleeing into the night on her own. A few months later, she and a few other survivors are recruited by a woman named Tavia to join a community based out of a house hardware store, and that's where things really start to heat up for her story. The first real interaction we have with her in Season 2 involves her lying to Kenny, Clementine, and Walt when she's discovered looking in the windows of a ski lodge that they're staying at. By that point, she's working with William Carver and trying to track down the cabin group that fled the hardware store at some point in the not-too-distant past. If there's anywhere in this early point of the story that people might have an issue with her, it would be here, as she makes up a story about how she has a family not too far away and how they're desperate for food. She didn't expect Walt to be so kind as he hands her a box of food to take back to her family, and it seems that interaction left an impression on her, as she'll mention it later on when talking about things with Clementine. And let's put ourselves in Bonnie's shoes here for just a minute, as she likely thought that she was doing the right thing by lying and acting as a scout for Carver. We don't know for sure what Carver told her about the escape, or what she knows about it overall, but based on what we know about Carver and his manipulative nature from his Friend or Foe episode, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he told her the group was dangerous and played up the death of a man named George who was killed as they got away. She would have been under the impression that the group was dangerous and would have wanted to do whatever she needed to do to make sure she wasn't taken as a hostage. She didn't plan on being spotted, and Walt put her on the spot with his kind nature, and she had to think fast when he invited her in. From her perspective, telling him that she had a family to get back to was the only way that she would be able to walk away without dealing with anyone in the cabin group. That doesn't excuse the action, as based on the ultimate outcome, we know that it was the wrong thing to do. But hindsight is 20/20, and not everyone is capable of spotting when they are being deceived. She didn't have ill intent, and had she known what would happen, she likely would have done things differently. Back at House Hardware, we can see just how sorry she is for her role in the group being captured, as well as the deaths that happened in the process, as she works with the group to help them break out. Her desire to help is mainly driven by a new insight into Carver's mind when she hears that he pushed a man named Reggie off the roof of the building for no good reason, and though things don't go perfectly as planned, she does her best to free them and help them escape. After the escape, she works with the group to secure a spot for Rebecca to give birth, and overall works to support everyone to the best of her ability. She acts as the voice of reason, trying to keep tempers down when things start to get bad, and stays by Rebecca's side as she goes into the beginning stages of labor. All in all, there isn't much to say about her in this part of the story, as she's just trying to be a productive member of the group. The only real call-out I could see maybe being made is when she encourages Clementine to climb through the small gap in the window of the booth that they're trying to get into at the Civil War Museum. But even then, she isn't any worse than anyone else in this season that's expected Clem to do things for them. In fact, it even makes some sense to ask her to crawl in and open the door, as she looks small enough to fit and they really need the water. Even after the baby is born and they lose Rebecca, Bonnie is kind of just a background character who seems to be acting almost as a moral compass for the group as she continues to lobby for calm attitudes and smart decisions. She helps bandage up Luke, who was shot by Arvo's friends, and does her best to keep Kenny calm when he gets riled up about things. Even her final act was selfless as she made her way toward Luke as he was clinging desperately onto the ice and trying not to fall in. To be fair, she first suggested that Clementine go, but that was more because she was panicking and realized that Clem was lighter and less likely to break the ice while trying to help Luke. And this brings me to the real reason I think a lot of people dislike Bonnie so much. If you try to help Luke, you wind up falling into the water with him. Jane rescues Clem from that disaster, but Luke doesn't make it out of the water, and Bonnie blames Clementine for Luke's death. This blame isn't warranted or rational, but grief never is. Luke's death is kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for Bonnie, and coupled with Kenny's attitude and the dire situation they find themselves in, she snaps and winds up deciding to work with Mike and Arvo to steal the truck and supplies and leave the group. It makes sense why someone would be angry with her for making that decision, but it also doesn't make her the monster that some people like to pretend she is. There's a lesson here as well because it's way too easy to see the world in black and white, good and evil, right and wrong, when really there's a lot of nuance and gray when we're looking at people like Bonnie. She's made some mistakes and has some things to make up for, but she also has good intentions and tries to look out for those around her. That being said, we still have to decide whether she's a friend or a foe. On the one hand, it could be argued that she's really naive at times and a little too trusting when it comes to men like Carver and Leland. That kind of trust can be a detriment in some situations, and we see how it plays out as she helps Carver in a way that winds up getting Walt and Alvin, among others, killed. On the other hand, she has good intentions for the most part and isn't trying to actively do harm. Most of the mistakes and issues she has come from a good place, and she isn't someone that you would need to worry would kill you off on purpose like others that we've looked at in this series. Because of that, I have to label her as a friend, though it isn't as clear-cut as it might seem. The biggest thing that she has working against her here is that she chooses to try and leave with Mike and Arvo, and then is willing to just leave Clementine lying on the ground after Arvo shoots her. This whole thing seems really out of character for Bonnie from what we've seen, and tells me that she either completely snapped mentally when Luke died, or that the writers didn't know what to do with her in the instance the player chooses to save Luke instead of covering for him. See, I think that Bonnie dying in the lake with Luke is canon. The writers likely assumed that most players would choose to cover him rather than risking Clementine's life, and would therefore lose Bonnie under the ice. If you go that route, it's hard to argue that Bonnie is anything other than a solid background character and moral ground throughout the season. And I say that because when the game first released, we didn't know what the ending of each episode would entail until we'd played it. There was a very real possibility that going after Luke would be the end of things at that moment for Clementine, meaning that making the choice to go after Luke could be the last choice you got to make. We know now what happens in hindsight, but like I said earlier, hindsight is 20/20, and you can't know more than you do in a moment. It's really a shame that they went in the direction they did with her after that as well, because I think it tainted the view of a lot of people who saw Bonnie as nothing more than a traitor, as she blamed Clementine for Luke's death and proceeded to try and betray the group. Another common argument I've seen surrounds her asking Clementine to talk to Kenny at the memorial as the group is meeting back up after leaving Hal's. This argument falls flat because she had tried to approach him before Clementine arrived, but he wasn't willing to talk and even snapped at Mike. She asks Clementine to try because she knows that her and Kenny are close and have known each other for a while, and she's hoping that Clem will be able to get through to him. Some of that might go back to something in her past as well, though we can't really know for sure. I say this because I personally know someone who is very much like Kenny, who suffers from bipolar disorder, and who would lose their temper at the best of times for the littlest of things. It can be hard to talk to someone like that, but in the case of the person I knew, there was one person who was able to break through to him even in his worst times: his daughter. She was younger than Clementine and would routinely have to help calm him down. I'm not saying that's right in any way, but it is important to understand this kind of behavior in order to understand the reasoning that Bonnie may have had in that and other moments. One other thing that I have to address here is the relationship between Bonnie and Leland, because I've seen people online calling her things like a homewrecker for the relationship she has with Leland when he's supposedly married to Dee. And to that I say, why don't we ever recognize the man's role in things like this? Leland was a grown-ass man, capable of making his own decisions and choosing who he wanted to be with. To blame Bonnie for his indiscretions is absolutely dumb and gives him a pass when he should be being held accountable. Society writ large tends to blame women way too often for the stupid decisions of men, and I honestly get sick of hearing it, because any man who tries to cop out of their decisions by saying things like, "She seduced me," or "I couldn't help it," should be smacked and told to stand in the corner until they're mature enough to take responsibility for their own actions. You are a thinking, feeling being with agency, so grow up and act like it. With all of that being said, I don't think there's much more for me to say about Bonnie as a character, but I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below because I know that you have some. Do you agree with my conclusion, or do you think I'm full of it? Did any of the points I made change your mind about Bonnie? Let me know, but stay respectful. Everyone has their opinions, and while there are some things in this world worth drawing a line and getting upset over, your opinion about a character in a game is not one of them. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to Lost in Games on YouTube so you don't miss any future Friend or Foe episodes or any of my weekly philosophy and ethics in games releases. If you want to help me out in other ways, I've got a Patreon, channel memberships, and a recently released membership program over on my website, joshbearhartlegendsandtales.com, all of which will be linked below. Signing up and pledging a couple dollars a month gets you cool perks like having your name on the screen in videos, so check that out if you're interested. That's all I've got for this one. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.